Hi everybody, welcome to Helen's Focus for this week. And I am a bit late. Elizabeth in our group suggested that a Facebook Live she'd like me to do on was working with the diary in terms of our to-dos, what to do with our to-dos. So I actually thought it's probably time that I started to tell you a little bit, teach you, if you're not familiar with it, the Kanban method. And I sort of thought, oh yeah, that's okay. I'll just put this board and I can put the camera back and it'll be fine. But I realized the board was too big. And so now what I've come up with, which took me a few minutes, is that I'm going to actually reverse the camera in just a moment so that you can see what I'm going to be doing. So to start off with, I think that in terms of where to put all your to-dos, hello, thanks for joining. The best way that I know how that's worked best for me, hi Carmel, has been to actually use this Kanban method. You may or may not be familiar with it. If you are, I'd love to hear whether you've used it, how you've found it, any issues you might have had, whatever. And of course, working out our to-do list or what we do with our to-dos is, it's one subject that there are just so many different answers to. People have got their favorites, all over the place. And so certainly I want to say straight off the bat is, please, if what you are using is working for you and you're able to prioritize your to-dos and you're getting them done, then I'm not suggesting for a second that you change things. And if you're finding it's a fun process as well, that it's not too tedious, too stressful, whatever. But if you're finding that for whatever reason you're actually having difficulty with either capturing all your to-dos or even probably more so having difficulty working out what to do with them so that you actually do get them done, and maybe you've tried putting them in your diary and that may or may not be successful. For a lot of people that isn't, and partly that is to do with the prioritization as well, except for time. Being if you're putting the urgent ones, today's or tomorrow's date in terms of the diary or calendar rather than say next week or something. But what I absolutely love that works best for me is this Kanban method. So it's a Japanese word. It was actually developed as part of the Toyota manufacturing process, which is amazing. And yes, it sounds very dry and mechanical, but it actually has flow, believe it or not, because when we think about it, the whole process of actually manufacturing a car is a whole lot of flows. And of course, as you know, I love to put my creative and spiritual spin on things. So to me, flow is around movement. And that's the issue that I have with a to-do list, a traditional to-do list, because it's very static. You've probably heard me say that before. So actually having something that can actually show the movement of your to-dos from being just listed, so to speak, as a to-do right through to being done. To me, that made so much difference where I could visualize it. And those of us, of course, who are creative and spiritual, we usually need or are better with a visual way of seeing our to-dos get done. It's the way that our brain works, the way that we're wired. And as I said, I just relate so much to the idea of movement in regards to seeing the process or the flow, literally, of my to-dos getting done. So I'm going to show you with an example because I think that'll make most sense. And I'll talk about different aspects of it as I'm going through that. And of course, any questions you've got, if you're watching live, that's great. If you're watching the replay, any questions, please post them, comments, etc. And I'll answer those either during the live or I can easily come back and answer any questions you might have if you're watching the replay. So what I will do now is find where I can actually turn the camera around and pop it on the camera onto my board. So hi Panetta, lovely to see you. So what I have here, this is my desk, and I thought this was easiest to put my whiteboard up, is and I actually do use Trello, which is a software program that is really, I think, really good. And I'm not an affiliate or anything, but I think it's really good for visual. It's based on setting up boards, and it's actually based on the Kanban method. So I tend to use Trello. As I said, it's a software program, but I wanted to show you in a really basic way that is still just as powerful. And in fact, there's actually quite a few people that would say that it's better to use a board because it's in your face and you can see the process. You don't need to, get on your computer or your mobile phone or whatever for a software. So what I have here, you can see I've got a series of columns, and the left-hand column I call inspired actions or ideas. Basically, they're the to-dos. Oops, they're starting to drop off a bit, the post-it notes. So you can put them to do, or in fact, what most conventionally, what most people will suggest is putting, it's actually boring, like something like backlog or options is often what that column is called. Basically, and I'm going to be using the example, hi Patricia, lovely to see you, of going through a project. So I have just written some notes on the post-it notes, which are my individual to-dos. And I just wanted to use these as an example. And I've used the example of me preparing for identifying what the to-dos are as part of my launch for my upcoming group mentoring program. So I have placed all my to-dos, each on a post-it note, in the column on the far left-hand side called Inspired Actions Ideas. This is basically, and in fact another title could be Brain Dump. Basically, you want to get all your to-dos from maybe your diary or your calendar or your head, which is quite often the case, or bits of post-it notes that are flung around the place, and actually put them all in this one column so that you know that you've captured all the to-dos that you've got. Now, as I said, I'm using the example of one project or one activity, big activity, which, as I said, is my launch. So I don't know if you can actually read some of them. I've got things like prepare bonuses, set up Acuity, confirm the payment process, promote in other Facebook groups, etc., etc. The actual detail on the task doesn't matter, or the to-dos, because the post-it notes, because of course you're going to have your own. But you want to be able to put all of them on there. And yes, you might have quite a few post-it notes, and that's okay. They can just sit on top of each other. So that's your holding bay in a way. The next column, and unfortunately the text is rubbed off a little bit, is will do column. So what that means is, out of all of those to-dos, I might actually only have a certain number that I will actually do, because as you can see, that left-hand column is called Inspired Actions Ideas. I might have an idea for my launch that I actually don't end up doing, but I don't know maybe at this point whether I'm going to get it done. So what I can do is move those across that I know I definitely will do. So I'm just going to see if I can move the camera, and excuse me if it's a bit jumpy and jerky, but I'm just going to use the example of doing promo, moving the do promo Facebook Lives post-it note into that second column. So what we're starting off with is the left-hand column, and we're actually going to be moving these post-it notes across to the right-hand side, because you can see that the next column is this week, and then today, and then done. And you can call those whatever you like. I've just kept this really quite basic just to show as an example. So I've suggested, and I'm going to actually add a little bit, another one or two. I'm sorry if this is jerking. To the will do column. And they're the ones that I've decided that I will actually do. They're not just ideas that I'm not going to act upon. I am going to act upon them. So I've moved them from that far left-hand column to the next column. Now, as you can see, the next column, out of those to-dos, I need to decide, and this is the thing, it is very much based on making decisions right across for each column. Because that's, when you think about it, that's what you've got to do when you're actually going through your to-do list and doing whatever the activities are. So from the will do column, I need to decide what am I actually going to do for this week? What's my priority? So let's say I've got 4 weeks for my launch. What am I actually going to do this week that is a priority for me? And what it does, which is so good, is that it helps you to prioritize. So out of all those will do's, I am not going to be able to do them all. I've had a look at them, and in fact, I may need to break down a few and do some extra post-it notes if that's the case, because that's what you can do. You know, some tasks, and I hate that word, but some tasks you've got to break down. And I know I won't reasonably, with the capacity I've got, be able to do all of them this week. So I need to prioritize again. So what I can prioritize that I'm going to do for this week, and I'm going to actually just move it across now, is to write related blogs. And I'm also going to write a sales page. And I'm going to create promotional Facebook posts. So you can see now in the this week column that this is what I am doing as a priority for this week. So from there, it comes to, so we're Monday night now, and let's say it's tomorrow morning, or in fact I can do it tonight for tomorrow, is to identify out of those, hi Susan, lovely to see you, out of those priorities for this week, what am I going to do today? So as I said, let's pretend it's tomorrow morning. And I've looked at those and I've decided that I'm not going to be able to do all of those today. Writing related blogs. A blog for me actually takes quite some time. So I certainly don't think I'm going to be able to do that, and writing a sales page and extra promotional posts that might go in various social media places. So what am I reasonably going to be able to do today? So I'm actually going to move the sales page over to the today column. And you know what? I think that's probably going to be all that I can do, because reasonably that's probably going to take me a while. It's like writing a blog post. And then, so I come to start my day tomorrow, my work day, and I know that that's the thing I'm going to be doing for this project. I'm simplifying it. I know we all have lots of different priorities that don't necessarily relate to one piece of work, but I wanted to keep this simple to show the process with this Kanban method. So it's tomorrow morning, I've started work, and now it's, okay, I'm writing the sales page. And I know ahead of time, like I'm looking at it now, that that's what I'm doing. And when we know ahead of time what we're going to be focusing on, it actually really helps our brain to get into the gear for working on that particular piece of work. It works, it sort of primes our brain, which is amazing. And it's so much more powerful, and it helps us stay in control so much more than you start your day and you think, what was I going to do? Oh, I think I was going to do maybe that or maybe that. And what I love with this board, or as I said, I use Trello, is when it's so visual, but you can actually see the helicopter view. And that I really, really like, because I know that if I'm writing my sales page, that's what I am wanting to prioritize, and that's what's working best for me to do. I'm not questioning, should I be doing something else? Or I'm not questioning, should I be actually writing the sales page? That's what I've decided I'm doing. And so it takes a lot of the guessing out, and therefore a lot of the stress. So I get my sales page written, and I then can pop it over to the done column and have a little happy dance and say, yay, I've done it. And so you can actually do that with all of the post-it notes. And of course, the reason I use post-it notes is because you can move them across. Now, this is a really plain one. I haven't done pretty pictures, etc. Make it colourful if this is something that interests you. And you can even do it on paper. It doesn't have to be a whiteboard. You could get a poster size or A3 size sheet of paper and just do the same thing. It doesn't have to be fancy. It's the idea of the process that matters. And I hope that you can actually see what I mean by flow when I talk about the things moving from the left-hand column gradually over to the right-hand column. And so what I can then do, let's say it's the day after tomorrow, I've written the sales page, it's getting prepared for the next day, let's say Wednesday. I might then decide that I'm going to create some promotional Facebook posts. And maybe I think, look, I might even have time because I've got more capacity on Wednesday. I can actually write more of the related blogs, or at least one blog. And once I've done those two and I'm moving them over to the done column, then I'm freeing myself up to actually take across, and I'm sorry I'm moving all the time, this post-it note that says do promo Facebook Lives, I've moved over from the will do column to this week, and then I can progress that. And of course, then I can take more post-it notes from that far left-hand corner, which is the inspired actions and ideas. The idea with this, in fact, the whole premise of this is that you're not needing to do work on everything at once, and that you are prioritizing. I've said this, a lot of times. You've probably heard me say it before. The key to being organized is being able to prioritize. And in terms of to-dos, I hope that you can see that where I'm coming from when I say that this actually shows you the prioritization better than a static to-do list, which doesn't have any prioritization to it, because you don't necessarily, you might want to do the first thing that's at the top of your list, but that may not actually be the most effective use or efficient use of your time at that particular time. So any questions you've got, this is a really simple process. Certainly there are people who use Kanban for their overall to-do list for their week. That's a little bit more complex, so I didn't want to start off with that for tonight. I wanted to give you just the example, as I said, of one, what I call project or area of work for me, being my upcoming launch, and I haven't probably got all the activities, all the to-dos listed. I'm still sort of working through that process. And any extra I need to add, I'll just write the post-it notes and I'll put them in that left-hand column, and they'll go through that process as well. And when I just think for me, when I get the momentum and seeing those things move across, and when you see them in the done column and they're done, that's really rewarding. It's a reward in itself, because it's like, yay, I did it. And, it's actually really encouraging, I think. The big thing I will say, though, and this is an absolute must, is that in your today column, so on any given day, you have to, what they refer to as limit your work in progress, which is, I know, a terrible left brain phrase. In other words, limit how many to-dos you're going to do in any day, particularly if these are ones that will take a little bit of time, they're more than just 5-minute things, to no more than 3 in the today column. So for each of these post-it notes that I've got, because they're actually, there's a bit of work to them. As I said, it's not just going to take 5 minutes. I would definitely be restricting to 3 or less of those post-it notes in the today column, because you don't want to overload your day. And you want to be reasonable. And that's where a lot of us can get trapped, is we take on too much. We think that we need to do it all in, a short space of time. And it's actually tricky to be able to sometimes predict how long something will something will take. So if you find at the end of your today, you hadn't done, you might have only done one of those things and you moved them to the done column. That's quite okay. Or if you have done all 3, like I've got on my board, then as I said, I'm ready to move the next one across from the this week column. And then things that take longer than the one day, if you still feel that they're the priority, they can stay in that to-do column to the next day, or even the next day, or whatever after that. So I know that's a lot to take in. Any questions, as I said, any comments, if you think this might work for you, let me know. If you think it won't, let me know. That's fine. This isn't for everybody. But as I said, for those of us who are right brain, the creative and spirituals, we often like a visual process and we love movement and flow. And that's what I find I can do. You can put, like I said, you can decorate this so it can make it a lot more attractive, which will probably make it more fun to use. I do that in Trello, and I might do another session on Trello another time, but I just kept it fairly basic for tonight to give you the idea. So I will leave it there. Thank you for watching, and all the best with it. If you do try it, let me know how it goes. And if you want any support with it, please let me help you with that. I'm actually going to put my scheduling link in to be able to book a time for just to have a preliminary chat about this or anything that you might want support with in terms of your productivity. I'll do that in just a moment, and in the meantime I'm going to say namaste, thank you for attention, and I'm going to move me back here so you can for me to be able to say, oh, there's the light, unfortunately. Bye-bye for now, and see you next week. Okay, bye, everybody.